This happened many years ago in Albuquerque, New Mexico, during the summer. I was around 13 or 14 at the time, and my sister and best friend were 15 and 16. This was one of the scariest moments of my life. Summers in New Mexico are hot and oftentimes pretty boring. Being young teenage girls at the time, we would often find odd things to entertain us, and they were not always the best activities for us to be doing. My neighborhood is one of the nicer ones in Albuquerque, but it's surrounded by the ghetto. This has never been a problem before, and we were raised to be cautious and aware of our surroundings. My mother had no problem letting us go around the neighborhood in the late hours of the night. We had this grand idea one evening around 10 or 11 p.m. to go to the elementary school that was about 5 blocks away from my house and run through the sprinklers. This is an activity that we had done several times before. We didn't feel as if we were at risk. We were clearly wrong. The school is surrounded by houses and is not very well lit after hours, so it was a great spot to take off our clothes so we could run through the sprinklers. Yeah, I know. Very stupid. While we were messing around, we noticed a hooded figure standing at the furthest and darkest corner of the schoolyard. We quickly gathered our clothes and cautiously made our way off the school's property and started walking briskly back toward my house. The path that we had to take took us from a very poorly lit area to pitch darkness. As we crossed into the darkest part of the road, we looked back, and in the last glimpse of light available, we saw the figure running as fast as he could to catch up with us. We booked it to my other friend's house, which was closer than mine. My friend was out of town, but luckily for us, her sister was there, having a party. We ran inside, practically crying. I'm sure she was thrilled a bunch of teenage girls crashed her party. Once we explained what happened, some of the older guys went out to go look for whoever was following us. They found someone hiding in the bushes with a knife. When they confronted him, there was a standoff before he took off running. They offered us a ride home, but we decided just to run the last 5 blocks back to my house. I'm not sure what this man would have done if he had caught us, but it definitely made me more aware of my actions and the possible consequences. I was on a road trip with a group of friends during winter break, driving through the New Mexico desert at night, heading to New Orleans. It was late, probably around midnight, and it was lightly snowing, which is quite unusual for the desert, and visibility was quite low. We were on a remote highway, the kind where you can go miles and miles without seeing another car or even a road sign. The car ride had been pretty upbeat, but the vibe became quite eerie as soon as we turned down this highway. A few years prior, we had gone to see a film called The Hills Have Eyes. For those of you who are unaware, it's a movie about a group of deformed cannibals living in the New Mexico desert. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say that film really left an impression on us. We are all from Santa Barbara and are not used to being in the desert. I forget the exact reason why, but we deviated from the interstate and we're now on the back roads. I think it might have been to avoid an accident that was clogging up traffic. Suddenly, one of us spotted something very strange on the side of the road. It appeared to be a figure, kneeling, just off the pavement. At first, we thought it might have been someone in trouble, but as we slowed down to get a better look, something felt really off. The figure was hardly wearing any clothing, despite it being freezing cold out. Their posture was very rigid, not moving at all, not trying to wave us down, just kneeling there, facing away from us. I thought it might have been someone who was in an accident and may have been in shock or something. So I told my friend to stop the car. She did, and reversed to a spot in the road that was parallel to the crouching man. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked. When the figure turned its head, we were all speechless. The best way I can describe it is that this man's face looked like it had been torn off and healed back over. He had no lips or nose, just a row of crooked teeth and a nasal cavity, giving his face a skull-like appearance. But the most disturbing part were his eyes. I only got a quick look, but it seemed like he had no eyelids. He had these really dried out, bulging spheres that just stared back at us. I don't want to sound insensitive, but seeing this severely deformed man in the middle of the New Mexico desert in the dead of night was extremely horrifying. My friend slammed on the gas and we just drove away. None of us could explain it at the time, but my best guess is that he was a burn victim who was wandering around out there. But part of me thinks we might have seen a ghost who died in a car accident on that highway. Either way, this was hands down one of the most unsettling events I've ever experienced. I lived in New Mexico for several years before moving to the Midwest. My friend Amy and I, both females, would spend many days exploring the remote corners of the land of enchantment, discovering abandoned ghost towns and enjoying the quiet, desolate beauty of the desert. One afternoon in March of 2010, we were traveling from Ruidoso to Albuquerque. We took a back road rather than traveling the more direct route. One leg of our journey had us on NM55. It's a very remote highway that runs through a very large, isolated region of the state. We loved those types of roads up until that day. This part of New Mexico is a flat, desolate area, and there is virtually nothing except sand and rock formations between the towns, which are spread miles apart. So we were going north on the highway when we saw a white pickup truck ahead of us, going in the same direction. Suddenly, he stopped his truck sideways in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. We were about a mile away from him, and as we got closer, we began to get uneasy. We could see no reason for him to be doing this. We were the only other vehicle out there, and we began wondering if we should turn around rather than having to stop. We were about a half mile away from him when he pulled over to the opposite side of the highway, but his truck was still pointed in the same direction that we were going. We tried to relax. Surely this guy was a rancher or something. Perhaps he was just checking out something on his land. As we passed him, we noticed a couple of things. One, there was only one person in the truck, a middle-aged man who never took his eyes off of us. And two, he was speaking into a walkie-talkie. A few seconds after we passed him, he pulled back onto the highway and began following us, but he never got too close. He would get to within about 40 feet, then sped back up again. We were starting to get nervous. I realized just how alone we really were. We had seen no other traffic on that road, and we hadn't told anyone about our great idea to take this detour. We checked our cell phones, and neither one of us had signal, which is typical for remote New Mexico, but very scary given our present situation. Amy was driving and speeding up, while I was frantically checking the map, hoping to find a road that would have more traffic, but we were out of luck. There were no other roads. We had to travel on this one to get to the next town, Mountain Air. Turning around to go back the other way didn't seem like a good option. After a few minutes, we saw another pickup truck coming toward us. He was going very, very slow, maybe around 20 miles per hour, if that. This truck was old and beat up, whereas the one behind us looked newer. Amy had us up to 75 miles per hour, which wasn't typical for us, and we blew right past the old pickup. As we did, we saw that it was another middle-aged man, and he was also talking into a walkie-talkie. After the white truck passed him, he made a U-turn. As we watched all this unfold, we could see the man in the white pickup say something into his walkie-talkie. There was no doubt they knew each other and were deliberately following us. For the first and only time in my life, I felt hunted. They stayed right behind us. We watched for obstacles in the road. We truly thought that the second truck we saw had set a trap in the road, which would cause our vehicle to be disabled somehow. We talked about driving into the fields. We were in an SUV, but it was obviously their territory, and we were afraid of what might happen if we went off-road and got cornered. So we stayed on the highway. The white pickup truck was right on top of us. He stayed right on our bumper. The second truck was directly behind him, and the three of us sped down the highway. The white truck maneuvered and edged closer to us, making it apparent that he was trying to bump us. I watched helplessly as he got to within inches of our back bumper. Amy floored it, advancing to 80 miles per hour, and soon speeding up to 90. The road was flat and deserted, but if any little thing went wrong, it could have been catastrophic. We absolutely were not going to slow down or stop if we could help it. The white truck then pulled into the opposite lane and started to gain speed. The only thing we could think of was that he wanted to pass us and get in front of us, and if he accomplished this, with the other truck behind us, we would have been boxed in and trapped. We looked frantically at the rocky desert on both sides of us. Our only option was to off-road it. But could we speed through the desert and make it to safety in one piece? As we topped a small incline, we saw a sign that said Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument, and it pointed toward a road on the left. Right at that moment, a blue pickup truck pulled out of that road and onto the highway in front of us. As we came up to the blue truck, we saw the plate said U.S. Park Service. We looked at each other before looking back behind us. Both trucks did U-turns and went the other way. We followed the blue truck to Mountain Air and then made our way to Albuquerque from there. I don't know exactly what those men's intentions were, but they couldn't have been anything good. There was something seriously messed up going on out there. I notified the state police as soon as I got back home, and they said they would keep an eye on things. This area is near Belen, New Mexico, which is where Tara Calico was abducted. It's also about 100 miles from Elephant Butte, which is where David Parker Ray had his secret torture laboratory. We didn't put all that together until later, and even though David Parker Ray had died around the same time this happened to us, it is believed that there are others out there just like him. And whoever abducted Tara has never been caught. Perhaps we just came into a meth lab territory. But since this happened on an actual highway rather than some country back road, I tend to discount that theory. Whatever's going on out there, it's not good. I am sharing this story to warn you, or to educate you. I guess it depends on who's listening. But you have to understand something. I don't know what I saw, but I do know that I never want to see it again. And I am begging you, please, don't go looking for it. Let's start from the beginning. I live and attend college in a small mountain town in Colorado, but I often go home to see my family. Most of them live in Texas, and I'm rather attached to visiting my cat, who still lives there. Now, in order to get home, I have to make most of my drive through New Mexico, specifically through Santa Fe, and about 160 miles through the charming, bare New Mexico desert, which, if you aren't familiar with, don't try to get acquainted with it, or if you're planning on heading out there, I hope this story will change your mind. On this particular drive, I had 3 other people with me, my younger sister Andrea, and 2 friends from school, Jess and Kate. We were on our spring break, and instead of buying the outrageously priced plane tickets, we decided to pile into my little Mercury Mariner and book it back to Texas. Unfortunately, we left the valley a little later than intended due to someone, me, forgetting their wallet. So by the time we got to the stretch of desert, it was close to 1 a.m. It had been raining since before we headed through Santa Fe. Not super heavy, but heavy enough. It was 65 degrees out. I remember this quite clearly because I had been in the negatives for quite a while due to where I go to school. So I was pleased to see something over 5 degrees. For this next part of the story, I need you to understand something. I hadn't been driving that long. I was awake. I did not hallucinate this, and I damn sure wasn't the only one who saw it. We passed a white Prius. As they were driving away, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw something crossing the road. It was walking with a horrible limp, dragging itself across the road on 2 legs. Its motions were unnatural. I slammed on my brakes, thinking that someone had driven off the road and had been struck or was injured. I slid to a stop about 20 feet away from it. The Prius had stopped as well, seeing the person in the road. I opened my door and stuck my head out into the rain to get a better view. Whatever it was not human, and it stopped. The figure was illuminated by the taillights of both of our cars. It had to have been at least 7 feet tall, maybe even 8. The skin was stretched, like it was wearing a shirt that was too small, but was also torn and tethered, hanging off its frame in long ribbons. The jaw was almost unhinged from its face. The cheekbones were gaunt and disgusting. The skin on the scalp was thin, and spots of bloody white stuck out. Something else that hit me was the smell. As soon as I opened the door, it hit me. The stench of rotting flesh, meat that had been left out for months, rotten milk, the kind of stuff that makes your nostrils have nightmares. The white Prius immediately took off, its tires squealing into the night. But I stayed. Fight or flight hadn't quite kicked in yet for me. This thing couldn't have been more than 20 feet away. It slowly turned its head, each vertebra in its neck individually cracking. We made eye contact, but it had no eyes, only deep black pits in its face. I slammed my car door shut and sped off. At this point, my friends had all woken up and saw it. Kate was in the back and was in hysterics. Jess was silent. My sister Andrea just sat there with a look of horror on her face, tears silently streaming down. Kate kept screaming, "What the fuck was that?" I didn't know what to tell her. I just kept driving, my hands gripping the wheel as we broke 80. Then something happened. Still to this day, I can't explain. The temperature had dropped during this whole event. It was now 30 degrees out. It had been 65 no more than 5 minutes prior. It then began to snow. We ended up pulling the car over at a gas station. No one moved. Andrea was crying, Jess was praying, and Kate was cursing and shaking. All the color drained from her face. "What the fuck just happened?" I looked at her. "Listen, I don't know, but we have to get out of here." I slowly put the car into drive and continued our road trip. Nothing else happened the rest of the way there. We got to Texas by 6 a.m. and this entire experience has haunted me since. I don't know what it could have been. The closest explanation I can come to was that I saw a skinwalker, or maybe it was a shapeshifter that was going through a bad change. Please believe me when I tell you this. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw. And please, don't go looking for it, because if you find it, it might just follow you back. There's a life-sized roach motel on 45th. This time, there will be no escape for him. Looks like it's just you and me now, Mr. Fear.